Okay, good evening, everyone. We'll go through our introductions. I'm James Daisy. I've been working here at Eastern Navajo Agency for almost 10 years. I'm the rangeland management specialist here. I've got Mr. Holgate here with me. He'll introduce himself.
Good evening, folks out there. My name is Bert Holgate. I was natural resource specialist.
James, I believe Herbert needs to come closer to the mic. We can't really hear his introduction. Maybe you guys move closer to your speaker.
Hello, my name is Herbert Holgate. I'm a natural resource specialist, Rental Natural Resource. Been here almost 20 years now, so good evening, y'all. We'll do a presentation myself.
We have two other staff members on. We have Mr. Roderick Yazzie. He can make his introduction, and then we have our natural resource manager, Effie Delmar.
Good evening. This is Effie Delmar. Can everyone hear me?
Loud and clear, Effie. Thank you so much. I think that's what we need
Okay.
throughout
so
the
I'm
whole
sitting closer
presentation.
to the laptop.
Yeah, there you go.
If James and Mr. Holgate can do that, that will help us. But my name's Effie Delmar. I'm with the BIA Eastern Navajo Agency, Branch of Natural Resources. My title is the Natural Resource Manager. So this evening we'll be presenting on the 2025 Grazing Permit Renewal Project. I'll have Mr. Daisy present, and believe after our presentation there will be time for questions.
Thank you, Effie. That was loud and clear.
We have another staff member also. We've got a new surveyor to introduce himself. Go ahead, Calvin.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Calvin Murphy. I'm with the newly hired land surveyor for Branch of Natural Resources.
Hello, I'm Roderick Yazzie. I'm the range technician for Branch of Natural Resources.
Okay, well, go ahead and get started. Normally I start out with a joke, but I don't have any tonight to break the ice. It don't look like our audience is there yet. Anyway, we're starting the 2025 grazing permit renewal. We've been working on it most of this year, and we initiated it really in June of 2022. That's when we stopped transferring permits. We tried to finish up transferring all the pending permits. Anyway, this is our grazing permit renewal process for 2025. We determined the available forage, the grazing permit application, Navajo Nation collaboration with the Land Board and Navajo Nation Department of Agriculture, and we do consultation with the district land board. And we apply criteria and apply the environmental assessment and FONSI and the applicant orientation, and then it's approved by the agency superintendent, the invoice and payment. We provide a bond document and finally issue the grazing permit. These are some of the renewal and challenges that we have with grazing permits. Livestock trespass, unauthorized livestock, non-compliance of permittees to maintain their grazing permits, and low carrying capacities of range units, canceled grazing permits, the environmental and social impacts of unplanned development, illegal dumping, etc. Branch of Natural Resources will present on the grazing permit renewal process that would include the bonding requirement and authority to grant livestock grazing for Indian allotments, non-compliance, low carrying capacity, canceled grazing permits. These are the authorities that we have that are our regulations for the grazing permits on Eastern Navajo. We have the federal regulations, the 25 CFR Part 166, ARMA, which is the American Indian Agriculture Resource Management Act of 1993 as amended, and then 25 CFR Part 167, Navajo grazing regulations. And we have these other ones in the middle for the use used by government entities. The MOU is used for among the BIA, BLM, and the Navajo Nation for the grazing administration of the Eastern Navajo Agency Administrative Area. And that came out 2003. Then we have the Navajo Nation Title III Navajo Code, Subchapter 7 Off Reservation Code, and the Navajo Reservation Grazing Handbook and Livestock Laws, 1956. These are our objectives. We have a grazing permit renewal update for our permittees, to understand the complexities and learn about the dynamic factors involved. We recommend practical and realistic change to achieve efficiency for our producers and permittees for a sustainable management of land and livestock, and to improve the economics of the landowner and the land users. Understand the terms and conditions of the Bureau of Indian Affairs Eastern Navajo Agency Final Livestock Grazing Permit Environmental Assessment, which was completed May 20th, 2019. Approved, grant, and administer grazing permits with improved emphasis on protection of sensitive areas, cultural resources, threatened and endangered species, habitat, and water resources. Concepts that are important are trust responsibility, our physical accountability, sustainability, conservation plan, carrying capacity, grazing permit non-compliance, livestock grazing, environmental assessment mitigation measures. This is an enhanced grazing permit application process. I'll spend a little bit of time on this. When I presented the slide before, we actually do a field assessment on the range unit that's going to be permitted and determine or adjust carrying capacity. And we conduct a rangeland monitoring within every 10 years of our grazing permits to determine the available forage. And we accept the grazing permit application, which is a Navajo Nation form that we use for the land board. It's a request for land board action form from the Navajo Nation Department of Ag, and carrying capacity analysis by Bureau of Indian Affairs, Branch of Natural Resources, and the client referral phase. BIA, Branch of Natural Resources recommendations. We review the environmental issues, concerns, socioeconomic impact, environmental justice impact, district land board decision by resolution, district land board meeting minutes. In this case, we usually receive a request for land board action from the land board when it's initiated, and they either approve it or disapprove it. And if they approve it, we support that resolution we support the request with the resolution. And normally it's a month after when the official minutes comes out. And then we move on from there, which is the submission of required documents that satisfies the CFR and the Navajo Nation Code. And these are the livestock inventory, a recent tally sheet, a conservation plan, brand cards, and a certificate of Navajo Indian blood, or acronym CIB. And then we review and apply to individual range units and grazing permits. Then we move on and apply the environmental assessment to FONSI. And then it gets that far, we go into applicant orientation. And that's a tribal process information from the Navajo Nation Department of Ag. utilizing the 25 CFR 166 or 167, environmental issues and concerns, socioeconomic impacts, environmental justice impacts. And it's approved by the agency superintendent, invoice and payments. And that's based on animal unit months, and that generates the rental rate. Approve the contract, generate invoice, provide bond and payments. Finally, issue the grazing permit. These are some of the grazing communities that we have in the renewal. We have District 16, District 19, District 20. District 16, we have Baca, Casamaro Lake, Church Rock, Manuelito, Mariana Lake, Pinedale, Pine Haven, Red Rock, Rock Springs, Smith Lake, Peru, Sayato, Two Wells, and Wingate. District 19, we have Adobe, Pistai, Blanco, Carson, Gallegos, Hogback, Herfano, Otis. District 20, we have Vicente, Castillo, Lake Valley, Little Water, Pueblo Pintada, Recon Marcus, Sand Springs, Star Lake, and Whitehorse. This is a map of our District 16 grazing communities. It goes all the way from the Arizona border, all the way to from the west, all the way eastward to, I guess you could say, Baca Haystack and Casamaro Lake, which is to the east of us, and then north of us up to Rock Springs, and then Church Rock, Pinedale, Mariana Lake. This is District 19. This is just south of Farmington. And that is a pretty big area also. We'll have a slide that shows acreage later. This is District 20. We have Lake Valley, Vicente, Little Water. It's spread out pretty good. It goes all the way from the Crown Point up north to just to the edge of the Chaco Wash, and then eastward to out towards Ojo Encino in that area. This is our grazing permit. And this is an example of what you'll see now. We have an expiration date on it, and it's emphasized by that expiration date, which is 12/31/24 of this year. Our current situations, all current permittees with valid grazing permits and who are complying with federal tribal regulations will be provided an opportunity to renew their permits. Letters will be mailed to permittees to renew the grazing permits by or before October 2024. Individuals who meet all requirements and deadlines will get their grazing permits renewed. We determine available forage, we conduct rangeland inventory and monitoring, conduct range unit field assessments, and determine the carrying capacity. We're going to adjust the carrying capacity to 75% of the current carrying capacity. For example, if we have a range unit that is a carrying capacity of 10, we're going to reduce that to 7. It's going to be down to, it'll be 70.7.5, but we're going to reduce it to 7. That's just an example. We have rangeland vegetation inventory. These were completed in 2004, 2007, 2011, 2013, and 2019. And we'll do another one for rangeland inventory for 2025. The studies include the type of livestock to be permitted, which are cattle, sheep, and goats. Horses were never included in the studies because horses were never specified on permits in District 16, 19, and 20. Carrying capacity and stocking rate. Stocking rate is the area of land allotted to each animal unit for the entire grazable period of the year, represented by animal units per section are acres, AUM. forage demand based on the area of land. Carrying capacity or grazing capacity means a maximum sustainable number that may be grazed on a defined area within a defined period, usually expressed in animal unit months or animal unit year long. Production of forage, the stocking rate over time. Carrying capacity impacts based on range inventory studies, important decisions made addressing low carrying capacity. District 16 has significant impacts due to increased use and competing factors. Land use plans, land development strategies, decisions impact carrying capacity and grazing permits. Arbitrary development can create change in the soil characteristics, loss of topsoil, vegetation, water quality, can cause erosion. We have a low carrying capacity mitigation plan. A grazing permit with low carrying capacity will be reissued to one person with a 2-year term for sheep and goats. Al conduct special meetings focusing on low carrying capacity range units. When 2025. Clearly develop short-term permits for low carrying range units. Revised permitting responsibility agreement. Fits range unit mandatory. Implement conservation plan to fits range unit boundary survey and National Environmental Policy Act compliance. Increase carrying capacity by combining with range units where grazing permit was canceled. Eligible for regular grazing permit if in compliance for 2 years. Develop a rangeland monitoring plan. Annual grazing rental determination. Appraisal of grazing rental rate. Provide information from appraisal of grazing rental rate with options. Landowner decides the grazing rental rate, which sets the annual grazing rental payment. Grazing rental payments mean the amount you must pay on animal unit month based on a fair annual rental. The grazing rental rate X the number of AUMs times 12 months. Rental rate determination, January, February 2024, BIA request for appraisal of the grazing rental rate. August 2024, BIA informed the Navajo Nation of a new recommended grazing rental rate. July 2024, October 2024, Navajo Nation could negotiate the rate for tribal land. October 2024, the BIA will set the grazing rental rate for Indian allotment lands. Ranch and Natural Resources will facilitate public work sessions. Ranch and Natural Resources will facilitate landward and tribal leadership work sessions. Accept grazing permit application. Collaboration with District Land Board and Navajo Nation Department of Agriculture. Criteria, compliance, livestock inventory receipts, livestock brand card, the type of livestock, certificate of Indian blood, and approved conservation plan. This is the data we have on the Menifee and RCP affected areas. We have District 15 in here. They're not going for renewal. Their permits are usually renewed every year. The ones that we do are for 16, 19, and 20. These are just the number of range units, the total acreage, and that are in these formations, the Menifee formation, RCP. You'll notice that, you know, in some of these range units, there's higher numbers where this Menifee formation is. This is our affected areas by the Menifee formation. And it's quite large. It starts from up near Hogback and it flows down towards, I guess you would say District 15 and on into District 20 and parts of District 16. And this is a Menifee location in Eastern Navajo Agency administered areas. We've got a District 19 up here, District 20, and then we've got District 16 down here. This is the one for Navajo Division of Fish and Wildlife land use clearance for high and moderate risk areas in our Eastern Navajo agencies. The red would be high and the purple would be moderate. We do consultation with the district land board and we give our recommendations. We review environmental issues and concerns, socio-economic impacts, environmental justice impact, district land board decision by resolution, district land board meeting minutes, submission of required documents, the Navajo Nation Code, Code of Federal Regulations. These are required documents for both of these regulations: livestock inventory, approved conservation plan, brand card for type of livestock owned, and certificate of Indian blood. Apply environmental assessment and FONSI, review and apply to individual range units and grazing permits, including the conservation plan and the agency protection area project. This is for the applicant orientation. Go through a tribal process information, 25 CFR 166 and 167, environmental issues and concerns, socio-economic impacts, environmental justice impacts, approval by the agency superintendent, invoice and payment, animal unit, year-long, generate rental rates, approved TAMS range contract. That TAMS is the acronym for Trust Asset Accounting Management System. We generate invoice, provide bond, make payment, issue grazing permits. This is some grazing permit data that we have for Eastern. This gives you the first column, or first row would be that column would be total number of grazing permits, our active grazing permits, and inactive grazing permits, and the ones that are canceled, grazing permit pending, the BRCF, and the number of conservation plans that are completed. Authority to grant livestock grazing, individually owned Indian land. It's an acronym IIA, any tract or interest therein in which the surface estate is owned by an individual Indian in trust or restricted status. Authority to grant 25 CFR 166 subpart C permit requirements, 166.200, 166.206. Any person or legal entity owned and operated by the tribe must obtain a permit under these regulations before taking possession of Indian land for grazing purposes. An Indian landowner who owns 100% of the trust or restricted interest in a tract may take possession of that Indian land without a permit or any other prior authorization from the BIA. If an Indian landowner does not own 100% of his or her Indian land and wants to use the Indian land for grazing purposes, a permit must be granted by the majority interest of the fractionated tract. These are authority to grants that are within District 16. This is for District 19, District 20. And these are the grazing communities for all of our districts in the Eastern Navajo Agency. District 15, 16, 19, and 20. Acreage by land ownership. We've got tribal trust, band lands, tribal fee, individual Indian allotments, homestead, PLO 2198, government, public domain, and state. And it gives you the permitted parts and then the not permitted. This is the acreage by land management districts. These are District 16 carrying capacity estimates for each of the grazing communities. This is for 19, District 19, District 20. This is specific authorities, cancellation of grazing permits. CFR 166419, a permittee's failure to pay grazing rental payments in the time and manner required by a permit will be a violation of the permit, and a notice of violation will be issued under 166.703 of this part. We may also cancel a permit under 166.705 of this part, or invoke any other remedies available under the permit or applicable law. Off-reservation grazing code. The district land board may modify or cancel a grazing permit by mutual consent by a 30-day advance written notice for violations of terms of the permit or because of change of status of land involved. Specific authorities granting grazing permits, CFR 166.203. Tribes may grant permits of tribal land, including any tribally owned in undivided interest in a fractionated tract. A permit granted by the tribe must be approved by us unless the permit is authorized by a charter approved by us under 25 U.S.C. 477, or unless our approval is not required under applicable federal law. The owner of the majority consent in Indian ownership and fractionated tract may grant a permit subject to our approval. CFR 167.9, all livestock grazed on the Navajo reservation must be covered by an authorized grazing permit issued by the superintendent based upon the recommendation of the district grazing committee. No specific language in off-reservation code. Conservation plan 166312. A conservation plan must be developed for each permit with the permittee and approved by us prior to the issuance of the permit. The conservation plan must be consistent with the tribe's agricultural resource management plan and must address the permittee's management objectives regarding animal husbandry and resource conservation. The conservation plan must cover the entire permit period and reviewed by us on an annual basis. Off-reservation grazing code, Title III, Navajo Nation Code 942, conservation and land use provision. A grazing operation shall be conducted in accordance with recognized principles of good range management. Stipulations or management plans necessary to accomplish may be made of the grazing permit. The superintendent shall withdraw areas from grazing for reseeding or other conservation practice and to protect the said lands from further damage, and shall also issue notices to this effect to all concerned. Roles and responsibility. BIA Eastern Navajo Nation Division or Branch of Natural Resources Program Function. Grazing permit administration, range inventory and monitoring, range management, agricultural education, technical assistance. Roles: administer grazing permit, provide education, ensure accountability. Responsibility: generate and collect grazing rental fees based on carrying capacity, coordinate permit renewal orientation, deliver guidance to finalize conservation plans. Review and approve conservation plans, conduct public meetings, provide technical consultation. Roles and responsibilities. Navajo Nation Department of Agriculture, roles and responsibilities. Ensure proper handling of land, grazing, and farming disputes. Verify compliance with grazing regulations regarding permit disclosures or potential conflicts. Reports and impounds livestock that are treated inhumanely and are stolen. Elaborate on behalf of any suspicious livestock theft, selling, or transport. Provide technical assistance for District Land Board and Navajo Nation Rangers. District Land Board, roles and responsibilities. Ensure proper accountability for land use on tribal lands. Make every effort to permit a land tract large enough to comprise an economic unit. Cancel grazing permits when related to forage depletion, death of a permittee, or failure to pay grazing fees. Acts on all proposed range improvements and conservation plans for range units within their district. Enforce the applicable grazing regulations and perform duties as required in said code. Assist the superintendent in obtaining an annual livestock inventory. Scientific. Ranch and Natural Resources informed the district land boards on all rangeland inventory activities starting in 2004. Rangeland inventories were completed for all districts in 2013. Office of Special Trustee conducts appraisals for all districts. The studies include the type of livestock to be permitted, cattle, sheep, and goats. Horses were never included in the studies because horses were never specified on permits and off-reservation lands. Public engagement. Ranch and Natural Resources will send letters to all permittees to submit required documents in 2023. Conservation plan, brand cards, livestock inventory receipt. Ranch and Natural Resources will complete public presentation on inventory results and grazing rental rates for District 16, District 19, and District 20. Ranch and Natural Resources will assist to complete conservation plans for permittees. Phases of grazing permit renewal negotiation. BIA will meet with the Resource Development Committee members, Department of Agriculture, and land boards. Nabiyutki Committee will negotiate and approve grazing rental rates for tribal land. Finalization. Ranch and Natural Resources will send invoices to permittees in good standing. ENA will prepare new grazing permits for review and approval by the superintendent. Partnering for better collaboration. Continue to provide presentations on implementing conservation and monitoring to ensure proper range management for viable livestock production. Engage the permittees in developing range monitoring programs to enhance their knowledge and interpreting the range resources so they could make sound management decisions to improve the land and their livestock. Enhance decision makers' awareness to make informed decisions and balancing the needs of the permittee and a fair return on the use of the land for the landowners. That's Navajo Nation and Menolati. Identify a multi-agency work group and meet on a quarterly basis to address funding, resource needs, communicate and clarify on tribal codes and federal laws and propose process improvements. Make presentations at chapter planning meetings and engage chapter planners and leadership to understand the importance of range management balance with community development. Strongly encourage Navajo Nation officials to develop an agricultural resource management plan as required by the American Indian Agricultural Resource Management Act of 1993 as amended by allocating sufficient resources and a firm timeline for completion. Identify a multi-agency task force to specifically address lack of enforcement. Examples: trespass, violation, disputes, allotment concerns. Federal and tribal laws are recommend practical proposals to Resource Development Committee. Well, we're ready for questions. We covered a lot of material. Some of the materials was duplicated, but that is our presentation for the grazing renewal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, James. If you guys have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself, or you can go ahead and raise your hand or insert your question in the chat box. Dustin, I see your mute is unmuted.
Yes. Good evening. Thank you, Mikhail. And
You're
thank you, Ms. Daisy, for the presentation. I was just wondering, in the renewal process, what documentation is the BIA going to be submitting to us? Like I said back in May, Mr. Daisy, that I received some of the documentation, but it wasn't the whole documentations for my permit. And then after I signed all the signature pages, and when I got the permit, I noticed on the plat map that part of my sections were taken out, and that wasn't made aware of that before I signed those documents. So I was just wondering, during this new renewal process, what documentations are you guys going to be sending out? Is you going to be sending out the whole thing, or are you guys going to withhold some of that back from us?
I'm not really sure about your question, Mr. Johnson, but I know that what we're sending out are letters that are going to be based on compliance documentation that are submitted by the permittees if they're in good standings. Examples: brand card, CIB, approved conservation plan, Cali counts.
Yeah. And then when we do that, submit all that stuff, then the permit process renewal starts, right? In regards to that, you send out the cover page, like the original contract, the OMB form that you showed in your presentation regarding the specifics of the carrying capacity, the AUMs, the cattle and horse, then the livestock brand, and then you send out signature plans pages after that. And then usually, I know when my grandmother was alive, she used to get plat maps in regards to the permits. And then, like I said, that this last time that we renewed, we never got any plat maps. But then in the regards to the official, after we signed the signature plate pages, the complete permit that you guys sent us showed a plat map. And in that plat map, showed where there was some land taken out in regards to that. In the years previous, none of that was an issue until I received the plat map for this last renewal process. I noticed that some of our land was taken out of the permit. So I was just wondering, what's the regulations, or what's BIA after we send in the initial brand cards, tally counts, the CIB copy, then what did you guys send out? Usually is just the signatures and all that, make sure that we comply with everything. Then you guys send out the official after the superintendent signs and everything, the official permits. I was just wondering what else is the BIA going to be sending out in regards to that process?
Well, it sounds like I went through the process several times. We're not operating like we did during the pandemic. So our offices are open. And normally when all the compliance documents have been submitted after our review of all the range units that we have that we administer, we're gonna be sending letters out to the permittees, informing them that they're in good standing as far as compliance. And then another letter will be sent to them to come in for grazing permit orientation. And once you come in for that, we have an orientation that will take anywhere from 3 to 4 hours, depending on questions, that will go all through the permit requirements and what's expected from the permittee as far as initiating having a grazing permit. And then once all of that is done, usually that same day we'll get the grazing permit signed, and you'll go through a permittee responsibility agreement that you're agreeing to abide by these rules and regulations that you sign. And the superintendent will sign your permit, we'll give you a copy, or we'll give you the original, we'll make a copy, and we'll put it in the folder. And that's how you'll end up having a permit. As far as the plat map's concerned, all of the conservation plans will have a plat map in there, and it will distinguish that. But I wasn't aware of some of the tracks that you had in your grandmother's permit were taken out. You can come in and we can have an office visit, and we can go over it and try to determine why they were taken out.
Okay, I do appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Destin, for your question. We do have another question in the chat box. Christina Bitsui, is there a tally count schedule available for District 16?
You know, throughout the presentation, the word collaboration came up a lot. So a lot of this is your communication with your district landlord, and they have representatives that take care of certain grazing communities. And District 16, I'm not really sure. I don't remember how many communities there are. I think there's probably 12 or 13. And anyway, each one of those communities have a landlord that's assigned to those areas. And normally we use the tally count as a tool for doing range land management. And that helps us in determining, you know, if they're actually at carrying capacity or they're over capacity. And, you know, and what we recommended is that, you know, you do one, you know, in the spring and then another one in the fall, so that you get your, I guess you would get your calf crop, and then, you know, after your sales in the fall or late summer, you would have another tally count that would justify the carrying capacity, and you would be minus whatever you sold. But, you know, our requirement, I think, is just one tally count per year. But, you know, the recommendation is that, and really you have to do the collaboration with your landlord representative to schedule those. And another thing is that, you know, it's the permittee's responsibility to update our office with the white copy. And the landlord usually submits the yellow copy to us. You know, it would be appreciated if we could get the white copies from the permittee themselves.
Thank you, Christina, for your question. We do have another question. Adele House, can you go over a little on the transferring of a grazing permittee?
That's the question on the transfer of a grazing permit?
I just see that same question in the chat box. Adele, if you want to, you can unmute yourself if you have a specific question in mind. If not, we'll roll over to the next question. I see a hand raised. Marge, would you like to unmute yourself?
Good evening. Yes, yeah, this is Marge Lantana. Thank you for a very informative presentation from your staff, BIA Jindafnashi. I have two questions, actually three. Number one is you mentioned there's a current rate. I'm not a great I'm permittee, so I'm not familiar what the rate is. I have a question. What's the current rate? And then you mentioned that there will be a proposed rate that's going to be coming down from the Navajo Nation RDC. I'm just wondering if some input is being provided from the livestock owner. This is how much we would like to see our next renewal permit, grazing permit. So I'm just wondering when is this plan coming up? When are you accepting a new rate from the RDC or the Navajo Nation? So that's number one. And then number two, you mentioned that there's going to be like a 25% reduction on the new grazing permit. Will that come with a rate reduction? Let's say the individual was paying like $100 on a current grazing permit right now. Adonle renewal go 70, let's say $1 per animal. 75 will that drop down to $75? Will there be a rate adjustment when the permittees are allowed to reduce their livestock? And then the third one is I saw some cancellation on grazing permit on your graph, one of your table. Has that been advertised to the general public? Like some permits are canceled in this area so that everybody gets an opportunity to submit their application and all the required documents that you said it's required to apply for a grazing permit. I'm just thinking like how the state handles it. If there's an open lease, they advertise it. So but other than that, you guys have a good presentation and thank you so much.
I can answer the first question on what our current rate is. But right now, we're charging $2 an animal unit. So, and then that's times 12 for a yearly rate. So that's what the rate is. And the proposed rate is going to be, we're going through a determination right now for an appraisal on these grazing permits. And they'll come up with the number of what they think the rate should be. But that's going to be, I guess, with the collaboration with the tribe and everybody else, our negotiations, they'll determine the rate that they're going to come up with, like the RDC. They'll determine it. Like from what I understand, this past 10 years, the rate was much higher, but the RDC's negotiation brought it down lower to what it is. But that's how it's going to work. Right now, we're still determining the appraisal value of the rate, but it's not final until we work with the Navajo Nation, the landowner, to determine that final number. And I don't know if any of the other staff can explain the 25% reduction, but a lot of that will be in this webinar on our environmental assessment. And that's, I don't know if Mr. Holgate wants to try to answer that question on why that's happening.
During our environmental assessment of 2018, the Fonzie determined that in order to move forward on these permits, that it's best due to the conditions out there, the drought and the forest availability, based upon the rain study, that it's best that these permits be issued at 75% of the current carrying capacity of what was allocated. So that's how these were established at 75% carrying capacity.
Thank you, Herbert, and thank you, James, and thank you, Marge. Moving on to the next question, we'll go by order. I see Barb did have a question first, then we'll go to Andy, Adele, and we'll go in that order. So Barb Whitehair, where do I acquire bonding? James, perhaps you have an answer for that one?
What was
Or saving that for next? Barbara Whitehair did have a question of where does she acquire bonding?
I don't know if any of the other staff members could probably answer that question. Maybe Mr. Murphy could answer it, or our manager.
Good evening, everybody. This is Calvin. That information will be provided in the next presentation. However, we are doing research on available companies or services that could provide bonding, and we'll have that information at the next presentation, and we'll go a little bit more in depth in the bonding requirements.
Okay, thank you, Calvin. Let's see what we have here. Okay, Andy Morgan, you did have your hand raised, so if you would like to unmute yourself.
Yeah, I have a question. One of the requirements is application process. I'd like to know what application or when the application will be made available. Is it already available? That's one of the requirements that in order to file for a grazing permit. Thank you.
I'll try to answer that question. Right now, we're doing the grazing renewal of current permittees. But in 2025, some of the permittees may not be in compliance, and these permits might be canceled or they may not pursue it. Those will be advertised to the district land boards, and the land boards will have a list. And if you attend the land board meetings, you can apply for them, and then you initiate the process with the Navajo Nation Department of Ag form, which is called a request for land board action. And that'll be discussed by the district land board. They'll either approve it or disapprove it. And if they approve it, then the next month they'll come out with their official minutes that stipulates that they made the motion and approved and voted on it. that will support the request, but the main document that we would require is the resolution supporting that request. That would initiate the process. And if you get that far, then we would require a brand card, a CIB, a tally count, and an approved conservation plan. And that's how you can apply for a permit. Right now, the renewal is all about existing permits. They're all going to expire December 31st, 2024. I hope that answers your questions.
My question is specifically about the application that you fill out, just like applying for a job. There's an application that the Bureau has. And I understand there's another application that the Navajo Nation is coming up with, and we have two different applications that you have to fill out in order to apply. I think that's one of the requirements. Matter of fact, it's number one requirement, which is an application. Idea.
I'm not aware of one for Eastern. Maybe one of my other staff members might be able to answer and give you specifics. Is there anybody that could answer his question?
Hi, good evening. This is Effie. Okay, as far as the grazing permit renewal, first of all, like we stated in the presentation, if you are a permittee, what we do is we review the information to determine whether there is any compliance issues. If there is none, then we would determine that we will go forward with renewing that grazing permit. And that list of permittees in good standing will be provided to the district land boards. So they can review that list, and then of course, the areas with all the information for those range units. So that is how we're going to renew the grazing permits. The only time we get an application or a request to acquire a grazing permit is when there's available units that haven't been permitted. Then that's when we will entertain that request through the district land board. So the district land board has a request for land board action. So that request would be submitted to the land board, and from there they'll review the request. The applicant will go to the meeting, and then the board will either approve or disapprove that request. And I'm sure there will be more people that will be, more than one individual will be doing that. So they have to interview all those applicants for that one range unit. In some cases, that's what happens. But hopefully this will all be completed at least by January of 2025. But prior to that, we'll permit the individuals that are in good standing, probably prior to November 1st, 2024. That list will be provided to the board to renew those grazing permits. Our invoices go out November 15th of each year. So that's why we will have to have a list prior to November 1st, 2024 to provide to the district land boards. If you're you probably are referring to that request by the district land board that's used either for any type of grazing permit transaction, like if they're going to transfer the permit or if they're going to if they request to have a grazing permit for a specific area, that form is used for that. And that's a district land board form. Was that clear enough?
Yeah. Thank you. I just went to district landlord meeting today, and that's when they talked about the application process, and I was kind of curious what the bureau had to offer, but I kind of have an idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy, and thank you, Effie. So we'll take one more question, and our last person to have that question will be Anthony BA. Anthony, would you unmute yourself, please? Anthony? Okay, all right then. Well, we did kind of go over our time. Thank you, Roderick, for navigating our chat online. And I just want to go ahead. Okay, Anthony, I see you're mute. You're unmuted.
Yes, thank you. I had to park and try to find these buttons, but anyways, as you can see, the BIAs really needs clarification in their own work. I am a district land board, also District 16 chairperson, representing Mariano Lake, Smith Lake, and also Rock Springs at this time. First of all, we were unaware of this webinar until we were informed by another chapter, and that shows the collaboration that they're working with us. We get very little information as far as what's going on, how to do things. But the main thing is, the point I want to come across is the land boards do have the authority to modify, issue, and cancel permits, as stated. And I'm glad they finally put that into the presentations. Now, we have a lot of issues, and one of them being the application. We've been asking for an application for the longest time, so we develop our own. But after noticing that this is a federal, this is a federal document as far as a grazing permit. So luckily, about 2 weeks ago, they finally came up with the application. They inserted it into a packet for us at one of their meetings. However, it does say it's expired. So, but we do need a clean version. And as far as my understanding, that this can be distributed. And whoever wants to apply for a grazing permit, whether they are existing or not, they are afforded the process, actually the paper, so they can apply for it. Now, the range units are being realigned. We have too many scattered and fragmented range units across each district, 16, 19, and 20. And right now, we're realigning them, meaning that we're going to be taking away certain range units and then putting in with others. And right now, we're trying to use the proper method of issuing range units, which is into one complete range unit, not scattered between Mariano Lake, Thoreau, Smith Lake, or other areas like that. And it's not feasible. And even then, the rental rates are set by us. You know, we are the ones that negotiate with this. We are the ones that go through this through land boards. That's where it's initiated from. But keep in mind, these rental rates have to coincide with the payments made to various entities, BLM, allottees, Navajo Nation, maybe even the state through fee lands. So we have to take that in consideration. The other thing, too, is that with this 25% reduction, that it was not even brought before the land boards. There was no collaboration among the land boards or even notification by the superintendent to do so. And that is stipulated with the CFR. Now, he does have jurisdiction as far as if extreme measures do occur. But again, that, you know, we didn't even get the courtesy of an email from the land boards, or actually from the superintendent to notify land boards that this was going on. So there's a lot of clarification that needs to be made, and it's a long time to go over through this. We had a District 16 grazing permitting meeting today, At Church Rock, we had over probably I'd say close to 80 people in attendance, and we're scheduling another one for Yambatco. And the lack of presence from BIA is very, it's very seen by the people, and they're the ones asking all these questions. And we would like to invite the BIA again to come to these grazing permitting meetings, and also District 16 Land Board meetings. You know, we need to work together. We know we provide an agenda, even though everybody has a set schedule. It's the first Friday of every month. So a lot of our permittees are actually in attendance, but it's just a lack of presence of the BIA that needs to be addressed at this time. There's a lot more we can go over this, but again, I guess we're over time, so maybe another time. Thank you.
Thank you, Anthony, for your questions and your concerns that you shared. Any comments from the BIA that they would like to share?
We had a joint land board meeting today, and the flyer was distributed to land board members that were present.
Yeah, the webinar session we just worked with the New Mexico State University in scheduling that, and that just happened last week. And I believe we got the flyers either earlier this week or last week. So so a lot of coordination in relation to the renewal is going on, and the university and the Navajo Native Sustainable Agriculture is assisting us with these webinars. You are aware that there is one on the 13th, which is on the environmental assessment, and then one on March 28th, which is on the bonding requirement. So those are the other two webinars, and they're on the same flyer. But this grazing permit renewal has been going on. We've been presenting this since for a couple of years now. As far as the application for the grazing, for allocation of grazing privileges, we did present that to the board at their work session the end of January, but there was no comment on that. So right now we will, what we're doing is we will, since there was no comment and utilizing that application, we basically just are continuing with the what's in place right now, which is the request for land board action. And of course, on the people that are meeting the requirements for that list, we'll be presenting that to the district land boards. And so that's where we're at with it. I'm not sure. I guess Mr. Holgate is the one that attends the District 16 meetings. And I know that he did not receive an agenda for the permittee meeting that took place today at Church Rock. So if it's possible, we'd like a schedule of those permittee meetings. We do have requests from other district land board meetings. They make it known to us that they request our attendance at a permittee meeting. So we'll be at White Horse Lake chapter. That will be next week. And then we have the March 11th meeting with the joint land board again and say I chapter to discuss the issues and concerns related to the grazing permit renewal. So that's another meeting that we're scheduled to attend. And that's the reason why we request these meeting notices to be brought to our attention with enough time so that we're aware of those meetings, the important meetings that you're having with your permittees, and especially if you want them to be informed about the grazing permit renewal. So we've been presenting on the bonding requirement also for several years now, but we've also presented at District 19 chapters on the bonding requirement per the local land board's requests. So we've done those presentations, but that doesn't mean we're going to stop. You know, we're going to continue to provide information on the bonding requirement and the renewal, and especially the criteria to renew the grazing permits.
Okay, thank you so much, Effie. And we're kind of over time right now. So that will be all the questions that we have for tonight. I see a lot of questions about the presentations and having a copy of that presentations. We do have Roderick on here. So if you are a grazing permittee here in Eastern Agency, and if you would like a copy, I would suggest that you email him in the chat box or chat with him on the chat box to see if you can go ahead and get a copy of that presentation. I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming on here for tonight. And with that being said, we'll go ahead and transfer over to some of our side of shared information. So let's see, let me see if I can get this situated. Before I go even further, I do have a polls and that I'm going to launch right now. So it will pop up on your screen. It's only 4 questions and it's completely not that hard. All you have to do is just take a minute of your time to answer this, and your feedback is greatly appreciated. Under additional comments is not required. This is just kind of getting an overview of what you would like to see more in our webinars. But as far as getting a copy of the presentations, I would advise you to put your request in the chat box and the staff will read it from there. So with that being said, I'll go ahead and go over our March activities. So on March 13th, we will have the environmental assessment. This will be part 2 of our BIA ENA webinar series. This will take place at 5:30 p.m. And we do have our last part 3 webinar series on bonding requirement. Some of you have questions on bonding requirement. So this will be the time on March 28th to partake into the Zoom platform and get started to sit down and view more on the bonding requirement, what they have to offer. And as well, for those of you that are already registered for tonight's webinar, you do not have to re-register in the scan code. I will be sending out re-confirmation emails 30 minutes prior to each presentation. So no need to re-register. So I'll be sending out each and every one of you a 30-minute beforehand each presentation begins. So you don't have to re-register. We also have a bull selection webinar that will be taking place on March 5th, starting at 5:30 through 6:30 p.m. roughly. This will be presented by Dr. Marcy Ward. She's coming from New Mexico State University and she's a livestock specialist. some of you that are on here, I know a lot of familiar names, and if you've been on our platform before, and you may have been in one of her Dr. Ward's webinars, she does have a lot of great information, and this will be a good time, those of you that are ranchers and you are looking to lease a bull from, I don't know, Navajo Nation Department of Agriculture. They'll be getting ready to do their bull selection, or not bull selection, well, kind of a bull selection, bull leasing program. So this will be definitely a good one to partake in if you are interested on basically how to select your bull, what type of operation are you running, and so forth. And here's a QR code. And if you guys want to, we do have the link already up on our website. So it's at nsa.nmsu.edu. If you just type that in the URL, it'll take you directly to our homepage. And on the side, it will say upcoming events. Then you register from there. Otherwise, stay tuned. I will share this information next week, and you guys can be able to sign up through Facebook. Lastly, not the last, but we do have more in workshop in the works. But here, if you are in the Sonosti area, we do have a herd health and record keeping workshop. So learn about what you can to include in your herd, what you can improve in your herd health. And we're also going to talk a little bit about proper livestock record keeping. NMSU did come out with a new New Mexico State University record book that is also in a farm record book as well. So this will be taking place on March 15th, starting from 10 a.m. and ending roughly around about 12. So this will be provided by Dene College Land Grant Office and the NSA Project. Any questions, feel free to email me. I have my email information in the next slide, but that's the information I have for you guys. Like I just said a couple of minutes ago on how to navigate our website, nsa.nmsu.edu. This is our homepage platform, and under upcoming events, you'll see this sort of platform on it as well. So those of you grazing permit holders, I see a lot of you on here. If you are interested in a conservation plan, definitely email first your Eastern Agency BIA and let them know that you're in need of your conservation plan to be amended, or just want to see if you have already started your conservation plan or what you need to work on your conservation plan. So this is basically free of charge. We provide this services. We do have a resource specialist on here, and we have two technical resource technicians that collaborate with us in providing one-on-one assistance to our producers. Not only do we do one-on-one with producers, but we also do workshops as well. So if you're a land board, grazing official, and you are interested in wanting to have a workshop on conservation planning, here's the email. And as well as resource goes, those of you that are grazing officials, land boards, if you are wanting assistance in livestock vaccines or scheduling out a vaccine for your cattle, or want to provide a thorough kind of basic outline. For those of you that are unmuted, please mute yourself. Thank you. We also provide lambing and kidding preparations on what you need to prep for before your ewes drop and so forth. But definitely we can work with you on that. But let us know if you have any questions as far as getting you scheduled and so forth. We would definitely be able to help you out. And like I said, we're on all 3 platforms. We're on Facebook. All of our webinars are recorded and shared on our YouTube channel that I share on our Facebook page as well. And we will have a bi-monthly newsletter coming out for January and February of end of this month. If you have any questions regarding conservation plans, Shirley Toth would be the person to talk to. As far as getting you scheduled for resource workshops, then you can have my information right here, Kelly. Other than that, we do have an operating website. So if you guys would be willing to check it out, we have all types of information, directory, tab for all the USDA outreach from NRCS and FSA, Rural Development and Risk Management Agency. So other than that, I just want to say thank you to everyone for coming on here tonight, and I hope that you guys all take something back from this presentation. I just want to say thank you all for coming on here tonight for the 2025 Grazing Permit Renewal webinar. This is going to be a virtual presentation. So I would like to welcome tonight's speakers. We have the BIA Eastern Navajo Agency Natural Resource Department, and that will include Effie Delmar, Herbert Holgate, and James Daisy. And we also have Roderick Yazzie as well. So before I hand over the floor to the BIA folks, I'd like to share with you all a quick introduction to our project. I see a lot of familiar names on here and some new users. Welcome to those who are first time joining us. As for those who have been joining us from our previous webinars, you get an idea of how our introductions go. But for those that are new, we welcome you, and we would like to share with you all a bit who we are. So just so everyone knows, we are a platform. We provide resources to educate our producers, and one of the resources are here today with us to provide their presentation. They will provide you the updates of the renewal process. So if you have any questions regarding your grazing permit issues and concerns, I would advise you to speak with your district land board to address them properly. So we can go ahead and begin with our introductions. My name is Mikkel Silversmith. I am the project coordinator for the Navajo Sustainable Agriculture Project. In short, we are called the NSA Project. We're funded by the USDA Outreach and Assistance for Native Farmers and Ranchers and Veteran Farmers and Ranchers Program. There is an abbreviation for who we are funded by. Don't ask me to read that, it's pretty lengthy, but you can read that on your own time. So the NSA main goals are to help producers with resources to help them improve their operations, both profitability and sustainability. We deliver workshops based on our evaluations and reviews that we gather from our producers from each workshop that we have hosted. Currently, we have been conducting workshops in persons on livestock record keeping, sheep and goat vaccinations, cattle marketing, herd health, and so much more. During these workshops and webinars, we always appreciate to give our appreciation to our project partners that you see on here. One of the big collaborators that we work with is the Nate College Land Grant Office and COPE, which stands for Community Outreach and Patient Empowerment. Not only those are our two major project partners, but we also work with our NMSU CES specialist who assist us in developing our agriculture related workshops for our producers. After this webinar, I'll be happy to share with you all our March month events of workshops and webinars. Moving along, one of our other goals that the NSA project has is to increase our producers' knowledge of USDA programs. You guys are all well aware of the NRCS and FSA. And the other two are RD, which stands for Rural Development, and RMA for Risk Management Agency. So these are all USDA programs and services of those of other resource providers. And you may have already know the NNDA, the Navajo Nation Department of Agriculture. They really play a big role here on the reservation on the Big Navajo. They provide the agriculture infrastructure fund that most of you may have been aware of for the past couple of years. They do programs such as farm and garden incentive and livestock related incentive programs. So we want to have our producers be aware of what type of programs that they can apply for. We host virtual resource fairs to give the USDA local field offices the stage to share some of their local programs producers can apply for. So whether there are ranchers looking to apply for forage drought loss assistance or even a crop disaster assistance, they can also apply for EQIP under the NRCS. So we also help with that as well, and helping producers apply for those programs once their CP and their grazing permit all have been approved. We can assist with those, and as well as the AIF program applications that we can assist with. Not to mention, we also, the NSA project has a conservation planning program. If you guys are not aware about that, we offer what is in collaboration with the Dene College Land Grant Office, our project resource specialist, Mrs. Tosh, she'll come on here, and as well as our resource technicians are on here as well. Assist ranchers and farmers, both in Eastern and Navajo Navajo agencies. So we help them by developing a basic conservation plan. We do a one-on-one. Not only do we do that, but we also do informational presentations and workshop presentations on this. So if you're in need, I understand everyone on here already perhaps are grazing permittees, you guys need a conservation plan. So definitely we can help you in assistance with helping you develop a basic CP plan. You just have to, if you're in Eastern, you have to coordinate with your BIA and let them know that you're in need of assistance. For Northern, it's a bit different, but if you are in need of assistance, feel free to contact us if you're interested in workshops. If you're a grazing permit holder, land board, and you want to have a workshop basically on conservation planning and going through each section and teaching your permittees how to fill out a basic conservation plan, feel free to contact us. Our contact information will be at the end of this presentation.